Hey everybody, my name is Gerry, I'm from Wild Eye, and in this video I want to share a few ideas and tips on how to photograph in cold conditions. Now, I run and host most of the cold adventures for Wild Eye. That would be the Arctic, Svalbard, Iceland, Greenland and such. And the preparation for an expedition like that is a little bit different to a normal safari. When you're heading to these places, you have to consider your personal safety and comfort, but also how you need to manage your gear. So let's start with the personal side of it. A few things. Make sure that the packing you do is aimed at the destination you're going at. Pretty simple. You need layers. A base layer close to the skin. Number 2, a fleece or something on top of that. Number 3, you need a waterproof jacket. And number 4 over that, like a parka or a big puffy jacket. This is again middle of the road for all of those destinations. One of the biggest things you want to consider is get decent gloves. Now, decent being keeps you warm, but still makes it possible for you to manage your equipment and even something like your phone, right? A lot of the gloves that you can get out there, B&H in the US is great for this, is you get gloves where the thumb and the index finger pops back. So you can open it up and only the point of the 2 fingers is available for you to manage and to change the settings on your camera. Some of the liners as well, some of the small liners that you put on as gloves, they have digital friendly fingertips, so you can still use your phone while you're out in the cold environments. The challenge for me, if you don't have something that flips open, either all the fingers or then just the index and the thumb, you're going to have to take that thing on and off and on and off. I've seen too many times where people lose that glove, or in the process of taking a glove off, putting the glove in their mouth, holding the camera drops. So you need a very specific glove for photography in these cold conditions. Most often, you're going to have 2 sets. One that's a smaller, thinner pair that goes on, and you're opening up the 2 fingers, and then a big pair over, maybe mittens, if it's really cold, like if you're spending time out there. Those you can take off while you go photograph and then put them back on when you're finished. More than that, safety on shoes. It's scary to me how many times when we go to these conditions, people wear normal sneakers and not a hiking boot because the snow is different, right? So shoes, hands, and overall layering for me, vitally important. From a camera point of view, few things to consider. You need to make sure that the weatherproofing of your camera is something that you're very familiar with. I'm currently in the OM systems or the Olympus system, and it's magnificent in the cold weather and wet weather. Make sure you understand what your camera is capable of. In the past, way back in Svalbard, I did have some cameras freezing up in the old DSLR days. That's much better now with mirrorless, but still, what lenses are you going to use, right? Is it something with element that's going to go move forward and back? If you get that camera wet and you shoot in the freezing conditions, the elements might freeze up. Think about that. If, for example, you keep your camera in a bag in a car or in the hotel room and you walk straight outside, it might fog up. And then suddenly you're in a position where you're going to have to wait for a while. Condensation might happen at the back of the camera and that freezes up. So there's a lot of things to consider how to move this. For example, if you're in a vehicle, make sure that you don't keep the camera all zipped up all the way. It has to condition. It has to kind of, It has to slowly get used to the conditions into which you're going to use it. Remember, these things are tools and they can deal with it, but make sure you understand what your camera is capable of. Then, more than that, some things to consider photographing in the cold conditions. Exposure. A lot of the times in the Arctic, you're going to be photographing with cloudy skies and a lot of white, ice, snow, polar bears if you're lucky, reindeer. On those days when the sun pops out in the Arctic conditions, the exposure can jump because now you're photographing bright whites with light reflecting off it. Make sure you understand exposure compensation and how to expose for these kind of things, right? If you are shooting landscapes, for example, in Iceland, and you're on a tripod, remember to weigh it down. In the middle of the tripod, you got a hook. Hang something heavy on there because the winds will take your camera and either shake it, which is not great for photography in the cold, or it'll blow that thing over altogether. Keep that in mind. Small little tip here as well. If you're in Iceland at the Diamond Beach and you're photographing the waves coming through the ice and pulling back, something happens when you put your tripod into the beach on the sand And when it pulls back, because the sand is moving, the tripod moves as well. Keep things like that in mind to get the shots. Another thing that's worth trying is slow exposures. Things like snow on a slow exposure, you get the soft streaks happening. Aurora borealis, the northern lights, do that on a slow exposure and you get the beautiful blends. There's also a lot to be said for time-lapse photography in the cold conditions. If you're doing landscapes and you're shooting over ice, especially something like pancake ice, which is the round ice that forms on a lake or a water body, the movement of that makes for great time-lapse images and videos. Same with aurora and same with snow, moving clouds. So all in all, photographing in the cold condition, it's a very different experience, different types of images you can create. But make sure you're safe, make sure you're warm. Make sure you take care of your hands. Make sure you know what your camera is capable of, and then try different things. From a wildlife point of view, doing something like Svalbard, where you've got walrus, you've got reindeer, you've got polar bears, always consider normal wildlife photography protocols, ethics, all of those things still have to apply. But the composition, negative space, give them space to move into, look for stories, narrative. I normally speak about proof, document, narrative, and create. Same thing applies. But then keep in mind how the cold would affect you in the camera, and then try something else. So if you want to find out more, check out the link in the description here on YouTube. It links to a blog post where I've broken down these and other tips and ideas for when you go photographing in cold environments. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. Love to assist where I can, and hopefully join you in the Arctic at some stage for another cold Wild Eye adventure. Thanks for watching, guys, and happy shooting. My name is Gerry. I'm from Wild Eye. Bye for now.